All right, so last we tuned in, we were in Mark 4, still in Mark 4. We had the parable of the sower, which actually turns out more to be the parable of the soil than it does anything, different types of soil. Of course, we want to be soil type number 4. Talked about the purpose of the parables, and it's hiding some information, but revealing information, and talked about the lamp. Don't put your lamp under a basket, kind of a thing. Talked about parable of seed growing, how it's really neat how we are responsible to be a sower and to sow in everywhere and let the Lord take care of the rest, and we come back and back to harvest. We talked about the parable of the mustard seed and how it's kind of a picture of the church. It grows up so big, but Satan's still going to be inside it and doing his thing. And then we start in verse 33. And Dad, would you read verse 33 and 34?
And with many such parables spake he the word unto them, as they were able to hear it. But without a parable spake he did not unto them. And when they were alone, he expounded all things to his disciples.
There's not a lot of deep theology in this. He still continued to teach in parables, and he only kind of really shared it with the boys. Don't you wish you were a fly on the wall when he was explaining all these to the guys? Because I don't think we got explanations on all of them. Anybody have any comments or any statements in their study Bibles about that? Yeah. Not a lot there. So, but wish we could have heard more. Doug, would you read 35 and 36?
On that day, when the evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. And other boats were with him.
Okay. Remember what was going on? He pulled out into a boat, and he had this kind of mini amphitheater, I guess, of ground around him. And so he's in the boat, and now he's saying, you know what, let's go to the other side. And then they head off. And it's interesting, you never see later on why it was even mentioned and other boats were with him, because in the story that follows, you never hear anything else about that boat. Mike Winger brought out that it probably was stated because Mark, remember, is interviewing. 99% chance he was interviewing Peter because he was a sidekick. He was with Peter a lot. And so Peter just happened to mention, yeah, there were other boats with us, and then didn't mention it back. But okay, Mark's just writing this down. He's transcribing. Maybe it's going to be important later, but it just stays there. So that's interesting. Now, this term, the other side, was an accepted term at the time for the group of cities that were called the Decapolis, or 10 cities, which sets up for chapter 5 and the situation with the demon-possessed man. That's where we're going. So 37 and 38. Guess what, Andrew? That's yours.
Ooh.
All right.
A great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion, and they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?"
Okay. Now, were these guys novices to the Sea of Galilee and boat life?
No.
like to think they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, these were a lot of them professional fishermen. So they knew about the quick storms in the Sea of Galilee and the just the way that place can be. And they were scared literally to death. Literally to death. It mentions that Jesus is sleeping, and I don't know what to make of this. Maybe you've got notes on it. He was sleeping in the stern, which I'm not a boat guy, but I think that's in the back, right?
That's the rear end of the boat.
That says the Navy guy. All right. So we have it from the Navy guy that's in the rear end of the boat. Is that not where you steer a boat from?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The rudder is to the rear, to the stern of the boat.
So maybe there's indication there. Maybe there's that why it's mentioned. He was at the stern, near the steering area. I don't know. And nobody commented on it, and I don't know, but it's interesting. It's mentioned.
See, one of the things that in my study Bible points out is they say, see a reference, a picture of a Galilean fishing boat on page 1851. When you go to it, it says it could hold 15 men, was 26.5 feet long and 7.5 feet wide and 4.5 feet high. Okay. And they say that he was sleeping in the stern on a mat or a cushion, right? Well, the stern, in order to use the rudder most of the time, what they would do is the stern would be like a flat board that would go almost even with the sides of the boat. And they would sit on that in order to turn back and forth, okay, and still have room for storage underneath it and all. So if he was laying on the stern, he was probably the one, if anybody in the boat, that would have the most worries about being washed off. But yeah, he was sleeping.
Okay.
Good point.
I go with that. Yeah, good. And we continue 39 to 41. Dad?
Again? And he arose and rebuked the wind and said unto the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said unto them, Why are you so fearful? How is it you have no faith?
Go ahead and do 41 if you would.
And they feared exceedingly and said one to another, What manner of man is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?
All right. So he had no fears, certainly, and you kind of mentioned that, Doug. There are 4 takeaways, and I can't remember. I think Skip Heitzig had this. First of all, Jesus rebuked the elements similar to the way he rebuked the demons, telling them to shut up. This demonstrated his authority over spiritual and elemental forces. But notice that their reaction was similar to when he exorcised his first demon in 127. They were kind of afraid. Interesting, huh? But he's really showing himself to be Lord of absolutely everything, spiritual, physical, and elemental worlds. Takeaway number 2, the Lord sometimes seems unaware of our life storms, and we've all been in life storms. And a good example, I think David wrote in Psalm 44, 23 and 24, Awake, why are you sleeping, O Lord? Rouse yourself, do not reject us forever. Why do you hide your face? Why do you forget our affliction and oppression? So this is a very human feeling when you feel like the Lord is not listening or doesn't know your circumstance. Takeaway number 3, the storms don't worry Jesus. Life storms do not worry Jesus. He knows the outcome of absolutely everything. And finally, number 4, the disciples were just as safe while Jesus was sleeping as they were when he was awake, yet they were still afraid. But they were just as safe when he was asleep as they were when he was awake. And then a tidbit that we've said here before is that, remember, Scripture reminds us not to fear something like 365 times. And another example is John 14:27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. Not as the world gives, do I give you to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. So, no need to fear, fellas. No need to fear. And with that, we put Mark 4 to rest. But we move on to Mark 5. Doug, verse 1, Mark 5. That's it.
Just one?
Just one.
Okay.
All right.
Here we go. They came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes.
All right. Gerasenes. People, the reason I stopped here is because I didn't know it, but people who like to argue against the Bible use this story to say, oh, look, the Bible doesn't know what it's talking about, because they'll say the city of the Gerasene. And then there are, in early translations, there are very close city names to each other that just by mixing around 1 or 2 letters, it's a whole nother city, it's a whole nother thing. But it all really doesn't matter, because what it says is the country of the Gerasenes. And originally, this particular area was settled by, there were 2 tribes. It was the tribe of Gad and one other one I can't remember. And sometimes it's called the Gadarenes. And so that's where Gad, the Gadarenes, came from. But anyway, it says that they landed in the country of the Gerasenes, and not the specific city. And so there, those who are looking for a reason to believe the Bible. All right, verse 2, Andrew.
All right. And when he had stepped out of the boat, immediately a man out of the tombs with an unclean spirit met him.
During this time, this is Skip Heitzig, and I think Mike Winger brought this out as well, and R.C. Sproul. During this time, we see a lot of demonic activity, but you don't see it in the Old Testament or in Acts or the epistles. And so the big question is why? And according to Skip Heitzig, he says this is the Messianic era, the era that was prophesied to crush Satan's head. So there's a big disruption in the supernatural world. And so demon possessions became a lot more prevalent, a lot more activity at this time in that way. It's also interesting that it's never recorded that a demon possession happened in Jerusalem. That's kind of interesting. In the outskirts, and particularly in the Galilean area, but in the Gentile areas, but not in Jerusalem. Kind of interesting. But, God always holds Jerusalem in this special category of bringing about his purpose. And so maybe he protected it in that regard. Not sure. When it says demon, it's going to say demon, it's going to say unclean spirit. Those are interchangeable terms. And it's interesting that according to Matthew 12:43-45, some demons, it's Halloween time frame, we're talking about demons. How interesting. Some demons are worse than others. So, and I'll just go ahead and read 43-45, Matthew 12:43-45. When the unclean spirit has gone out of a person, it passes through waterless places seeking rest, but finds none. Then it says, I'll return to my house from which I came. And when it comes, it finds the house empty, swept, and put in order. Then it goes and brings with it 7 other spirits more evil than itself, and they enter and dwell there. And the last state of that person is worse than the first. So also will it be with this evil generation. So based on what we see in demon possession, we can kind of pull out some characteristics of a demon, of demons. Based on Mark 1:24, here in Mark 5, and then in Matthew 12, we see demons sometimes leave their host. It's not clear why, for unknown reasons. They pass through waterless places seeking rest. So I guess dry, arid places, but it indicates that they're not at rest unless they're inside their host. That's where they're really at rest. They have reasoning capability because they reason to go back to the original host that they just came out of. They are social with other demons. They vary in their evilness because it said that it brought back 7 more evil demons with it. They re-enter the original host because it was empty. Even though the person put their life in order, they were still empty. They didn't have Christ. So if Christ has moved into you, a demon cannot move in. Somebody must be empty. Everybody has a God. Everybody worships something. They don't think so, but there's something inside that they want to put in there.
Let me,
Go ahead.
if I may, just twist your ear here for a second.
Okay.
Okay, we in recovery, we use this parable, or not parable, but this story here. Okay, as far as being demon possessed. Okay, if you stop and you look at how they talk about the demon that we have within, and how they like other demons for friends, it's kind of like addiction. Okay, we have the sin of alcohol in our life, and when we consume our alcohol, then we let our guard down, which opens the door for other demons to come in.
Yeah.
So then you may start in with smoking.
Yeah.
Okay. And between drinking and smoking, before you know it, you allow drugs to come in, and they just keep compounding and compounding and compounding.
Makes sense.
And when we get to the end, I'll tell you more on how it ties together with the recovery as far as the steps and how it works.
Good. Yeah. Hold on to that thought for sure. But
I never lose that thought.
I bet. But going off of that, I have heard, and I'm not an expert in it, but I have heard that drugs are not only a gateway to harder and bigger drugs, but they are a spiritual gateway to letting things like this in. Kind of makes sense. Kind of makes sense. Next characteristic or attribute is that they only get worse and not better. So 10 aren't going to move out and 1 move back in. It's just going to get worse. And then finally, they do have a concept of eschatology or end times, because this guy we're about to see, he comes running up to Jesus and he basically says, why are you tormenting me? No, this is the one in Mark 1:24. He comes up to Jesus, or he claims, is it time? Or have you come to torment me now? Is it time? So they know it's coming. They have a concept of eschatology. And that's the end of my list of characteristics. Doug, did you want to share about recovery?
Well, when we move a little bit forward,
Mm-hmm.
I'll tie it together more,
Okay.
but I don't want to get too far ahead of where we're at with our reading.
Gotcha. Good move. All right, 3 to 5. We already forgot who read last. Is it Andrew's turn?
Sure.
Sure, 3 to 5.
He lived among the tombs, and no one could restrain him any more, even with a chain. For he had often been restrained with shackles and chains, but the chains he wrenched apart, and the shackles he broke in pieces, and no one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the mountains he was always howling and bruising himself with stones.
Okay. So he was not your model civil servant, was he? Not somebody you're going to have run for mayor, because the story is going to really continue and get really interesting here. But he's a black eye on society right now. His behavior is, if we want to list it out, he dwells among the tombs. And notice he's outside of society, but he's not totally outside of society. And it's just something I noticed. If you have a note on that, I mean, if he's really out there, it says he's among the mountains and the tombs. Why even come around the tomb? Why even come around society? He still wants to be around people, obviously. He still desires that interaction. What's that?
Let's remember now, the tombs were usually caves carved into mountains or rocks or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone lives in tombs, would that not be living in darkness?
He is living in darkness. Yeah, most assuredly. I guess my question is, why even deal with any part of society whatsoever? I mean, he desired some kind of contact. The poor guy in there that's trapped with all those demons, I think he's desiring some kind of contact, even if it's amongst dead people. But he's definitely in darkness. That's for sure. He was naked, according to Luke 8:27, a parallel story. He was screaming. He was wandering. He was self-mutilating. And he had enormous strength. Now, was this adrenaline? Was it supernatural? Nobody really knows. And the self-mutilating thing, I think Mike Winger brought up that, kids today are cutting themselves. Figure that out. I don't know. You've seen this, Andrew, I'm sure. Amongst the kids, it's no good reason, just, yeah. That's the weirdest thing. So you just, your heart goes out to this guy. He is totally controlled by demonic activity. And the question is, why do demons desire a human host? And the question, the answer they came up with was, demons desire a human host in order to malign the image of God. So they're getting into a human, which is the image of God, and messing them up big time. That's their whole purpose. Malign the image of God. All right. Questions, comments? All right, let's go on with this fella here. Dad, would you read 6 through 8?
6 through 8.
Mhm.
But when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshipped him and cried with a loud voice and said, What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee by God that thou torment me not.
Go
For he
ahead.
said unto him,
I'm sorry.
For he said unto him, Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit.
All right. Notice that he's giving homage to Jesus. He's actually worshiping Jesus. And Skip Heitzig brought out that the demon's belief is pure and correct orthodoxy. They traffic in heresy, they promote liberalism, they have false teaching and cultism, but what they personally know and believe is correct. The existence of God, because God created them, the deity of Jesus Christ. They believe that they will lose the battle, a little eschatology there. And fourth, they can only operate by permission of God. So, like James says, the demons believe and shudder. So they have good belief, but they try to mess everybody else up. But I do think it's neat that he seems to pray to Jesus, in the name of God, please, don't torment me.
Well, he's opening his heart.
Well, I mean, this is the demon that's talking here, the demons. So let's remember that he's doing the demon is doing. He's paying homage. He can't be saved. The demon can't be saved, obviously, but he is recognizing God before him is what he's doing, which is really interesting. Instead of forcing the man, the host, to run away, he can't help himself but praise and honor God and beg for mercy, beg him not to torment him. 9 and 10. Doug, please, sir.
And Jesus asked him, What is your name? He replied, My name is Legion, for we are many. And he begged him earnestly not to send them out of the country.
A Roman legion is 4,000 to 6,000 men. And were there exactly 6,000 demons? Who knows? It's definitely unclear. But there were probably a lot. Luke 8:31 indicates in the same story that it wasn't just out of the country, but likely into the abyss is what Luke mentions. And the abyss would be to where it would force the demons to go inactive, being that they're done, totally done doing whatever demons do. And so they're begging Jesus not to put them into the abyss. So is Jesus showing mercy to the demons? I don't know. Not sure how that works. I don't know. David Gusick writes, it is torment for a demon to be removed from a human. It's from within the body that they are able to distort and harm the image of God. There's the image of God thing. Yeah. So now we see the fun part. 11 through 13. Doug?
Andrew,
Sorry.
I just read.
Okay. I don't know.
Now there on the hillside a great herd of swine was feeding, and the unclean spirits begged him, "Send us into the swine, let us enter them." So he gave them permission, and the unclean spirits came out and entered the swine, and the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea and were drowned in the sea.
All right. So we're about to have a win-win here for Jesus, because at this time, consider the law, it was unlawful to raise and eat pigs. So they want to go into, the demons want to go into the pigs, knock yourself out. But you are leaving the man regardless. So
You need a new host.
need a new host very badly.
So you send the unclean spirits with the unclean animals.
Yep. Exactly. That's a good connection, Doug. So why did the demons kill the pigs? And who was this? R.C. Sproul, I think, said the demonic agenda is to cause problems regardless of what they do. They want to hurt the image of God, first of all, but if they can't do that, they'll harm something. So these 2,000 pigs represented
Harm their host.
The 2,000 pigs represented a great resource and income, and so their death caused trouble in that region. Primarily, so it's like killing a factory, you know. So, we notice. Go ahead.
Who would have pigs in this area?
Well, this was also a Gentile area.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I get the impression it was a mix, Gentile and Jewish. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Some people argue also that there were exactly 2,000 demons. That's kind of a weak argument.
Well, hey, if you stop and think about it, all the demons that went to them pigs were inside one man. So what's to say that there weren't multiple demons in multiple pigs?
Right. True. Yeah. So whatever it was, it caused them to run down the side of the mountain and die.
Right.
One commentator asked, no, this is on a forum. It said, what do you think happened to the demons then? Well, obviously the demons didn't die and they got released from their new pig host. So said, well, they're still in the region, likely. They went and found some other host, most likely. Which I thought was an interesting comment. But again, that was just a comment, but it's maybe true.
Maybe they went to the fish.
To fish. Going downhill there, aren't they? Yeah. Dad, 14 through 17. We'll see if we can finish. We'll finish the story about the pigs here, or the demon-possessed man, in a minute.
And they that fed the swine fled and told it into the city and in the country. And they went out to see what it was that was done. And they come to Jesus and see him that was possessed with the devil and had the legion sitting and clothed in his right mind, and they were afraid. And they that saw it told them how it befell to him that was possessed with the devil, and also concerning the swine. How far did you say?
17.
And they began to pray to him to depart out of their coasts.
Interesting. So it scared the people, scared them to death. So their normal, in our society's normal, was to have a demon in the hood. That was to hear his screaming in the background, you know, be afraid to go into that area. That was normal. They were okay with that. But now that the formerly possessed man is safe to go around, you could elect the man as a mayor. He was a fine citizen, and now they're afraid. Now think of the irony of that. Think of the irony of that. We can kind of bring this into our day here. Finances and fear likely caused them to ask Jesus to leave. I mean, they just couldn't really accept it. And what did he do? He was asked to leave, and what did he do? He's about to, in 18, he's about to get in the boat, and he's about to be gone. So he complied. We've done the same thing, we, in quotes, told God to stay out of our schools and much of our society, out of our government, out of our schools, everything. So how's that working out for us? We have to ask society, how's it working out? It's not working out. It's not working out good at all. All right, 18 to 20, and we got a pretty good gold nugget coming up. So, Doug, if you would read 18 to 20.
As he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed with demons begged him that he might be with him. And he did not permit him, but said to him, "Go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." And he went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone marveled.
All right. On previous healings, demon possession healings, and all that, what had he done? What did he tell the people as soon as he healed them?
Not yet.
Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. But now he's in a Gentile, primarily Gentile region. So he's not going to have the fear of being pressed really hard. He's already been asked to leave. And now he makes his first foreign missionary. He commissions his first foreign missionary. So this demon-possessed man just became the first missionary, which is really cool, I think. Really cool. Notice that he didn't tell the man to keep the law or to wash or to stop eating certain foods or to stop doing or start doing anything. He only told him to go back to his home and his friends and tell them what God had done for him. I think that's
how much mercy he's had on him.
How much mercy he's had on him. And so out of joy and out of gratitude, this guy doesn't just go back to his hometown. He goes to the whole region, which is called the Decapolis. And the size of the region is 100 miles north to south and 50 miles east to west. And it contained 10 major cities, thus Decapolis. This really points to the fact that our salvation is not based on works, because he was only told to do this little bit. But there's a great quote from, let's see if I can find it here. And it's not coming, but the point is, out of our joy, not out of our works, but out of the joy of our salvation is expressed in works. Our works don't bring on salvation, but because we are saved, then we do works just out of our joy. That's the big concept right there. To follow up with the guy, he was an amazing witness. And this was the beginning of the end for the Decapolis cities as a pagan Greco-Roman grouping of cities. In the centuries which followed, and certainly by the visiting times, Christianity rapidly spread throughout these cities, with some being more receptive than others. Pella was one of them, was said to be a base for some of the earliest churches, the earliest church leaders. And the church historian Eusebius even reported that all the believers fled there to escape the Jewish revolt that led to the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. So because of the work of this previously demonic man who went to this large region telling his story, a lot of people got saved, and it really turned the tide for the area out of one guy. Pretty neat missionary. And that was your gold nugget, by the way, for the evening. All right, so bringing it in for landing here right at 8 o'clock. We'll continue next week at verse 21.